Hello and welcome to Landscape Photography World, the podcast for everyone passionate about landscape photography. I'm Grant Swinburne and I'll be your host on the show, talking to landscape photographers about their motivations, likes and dislikes. This podcast is sponsored by SyncBack Pro, the professional photographer's tool to keep your images safe. How safe are your photographs? Or to put it this way, how would you feel if you permanently lost some or even all of them? The fact is, there are very real risks in storing your digital images on a hard drive, even if they're backed up to an external device. There's ransomware, hardware failure, file corruption, virus infection, and even accidental deletion or destruction. SyncBack Pro makes this problem go away permanently. SyncBack Pro is the professional photographer's tool to back up photographs, images, documents, and data files. Once set up, it keeps your files safe, quietly and reliably in the background. So if problems occur or disaster strikes, you'll have nothing to worry about. Your photographs will be safe. Which is why it's also the backup solution that I use myself for my own photographs. Take advantage of an exclusive 25% discount today by going to www.backup.sg. The software will never expire, meaning your photographs are safe forever. That's www.backup.sg. Give your photographs the protection they deserve. And now, on with the show. Award-winning photographer and scientist Franka M. Gabler developed a fascination, admiration and respect for nature early in her lifetime. Soon after moving to California in 1997, she experienced her first wilderness backpacking trip in the Sierra Nevada mountains. Ever since that time, she's been photographing the magnificence of the high country mountains and the California landscape. Her photographs are evocative. The light and atmosphere evident in her photographs often result in sentimental impact and ethereal feeling. She strives to capture the mood and the essence of the places she photographs. Her images have been recognised internationally, including the 2022 Landscape Photography World Awards. Her photographs are published in several books and she has been featured in several photography magazines. Franka has spoken at several photography conferences. Her work has been featured in numerous exhibits and is represented in private collections throughout the US and abroad. We discuss the advantages of spending time at a location to gain familiarity, the enjoyment of her experiences in nature, and how her early experiences in the High Sierra have shaped her portfolio, along with a lot more. I hope you enjoy the show. G'day, Franka. Welcome to Landscape Photography World. How are you going?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me.
Let me know who you are and why you do what you do.
Oh, how would I introduce myself? I'm a scientist and a photographer. I usually put this little sentence in my bio. I moved to California from Croatia almost 26 years ago.
Wow. Okay.
And I moved from a city where I lived in Croatia on Adriatic Sea, a beautiful city. I moved in the middle of the Sierra Nevada mountains, close to Yosemite National Park. And that was a lifestyle change for me.
I can imagine.
And before moving here, my life was all about the sea. We had a sailing boat, family sailing boat. We would cruise Croatian Adriatic, which is fantastic, one of the most beautiful coasts, over 1,000 islands. And I think this is where I learned how to appreciate and love nature.
Mm.
The sea was my life at that time.
Yep.
And I didn't know mountains at the time, other than I would go skiing once a year for a week in Slovenia or Italy. So then I moved to California, and the reason I moved here was, I met my not yet husband then, but I knew him from my childhood. His parents moved to Croatia, built a house next to our house on the beach. And then he came on vacation, and it was a love story, and I decided I needed to come here and see what happens.
Fair enough.
And yep, that's how I ended up here. And so that's why I ended up here. It was first Oakhurst, not Portugal. So it's a small mountain town close to Yosemite National Park.
Okay.
And yeah, it was a big, big change for me. In the mountains, I didn't know, I didn't have appropriate clothing. Well, that was easily solved. But
you can't get around in ski gear all the time.
Yeah. I moved here basically as a visiting scientist. So I arranged a grant that I had funding, and then I tested my relationship, and I decided, I'll stay here. So this is my home.
Yeah. So, being a scientist, what branch of the sciences are you in? What are you exploring?
I have background in ag engineering, and but it's all basically focused on plant diseases, pests.
Okay.
Yeah, and my degree, my PhD is in plant pathology, so dealing with plant diseases. And I always worked with plants, with in vineyards and citrus. So basically grape and citrus.
Cool.
I still do that. I now work with grapes only.
Okay, nice. So why photography? What got you excited about photography, and in particular landscape photography? Where did that passion start for you?
It probably has to do with my lifestyle change, moving here in the middle of nowhere, not too much active social life. and I, before that, photography and camera was just a tool for me to document my travels, family events. I remember shortly before I moved to the United States, a friend of mine, he's a photographer in Croatia, and he asked me, what does photography mean to you? What is for you photography? And my answer was, at the time, it was to capture a moment. Capture a moment. And I was basically thinking of documentary. I was thinking of more street photography. I didn't think of landscape photography at all.
Okay.
And then probably first several years, I was focused on my scientific job. I was focusing on doing experiments, publishing research papers, and it was basically reestablishing myself as a scientist in the new country.
Yeah.
And photography just happened, and it was a weird thing how it happened, because I never saw it coming.
Okay.
A friend of mine from Italy visited, and he was seriously into photography. And so it happens always when someone comes from Europe, I want to show them around. I take them to Yosemite. I take them to the coast.
Sure.
And, but this is the first time that, it was a guy with a camera, and he was serious. And so I took him to Yosemite once, and then we went second time somewhere. And I was thinking at that time, why, how many more times there are so many places I wanted to show him. Why again to Yosemite? And it was winter time. It was 2006, and there was snow. And I remember the moment, I don't know if you know Yosemite. There is a one in Meadow with a view of Half Dome, and so my friend was there focusing, composing. He was all in the zone, and I thought, why it takes him so long to to take the photo of Half Dome?
Don't you just push a button?
Yeah. It was totally like new to me watching someone so absorbed in what he was doing, and then he saw me like I wanted to move on. I didn't say anything. I let him do his work, and then he said, "Well, have you ever shot digital?" And I said, "But not really. I had the Olympus film camera at the time."
Yep.
And so he gave me his second body, his old body, Nikon. I think it was Nikon 100. It was one of the, well, I think second generation digital DSLR. And I knew how to operate the buttons because I used Nikon at work.
Yep.
To photograph my experiments, but it was totally like, wow, at the moment when I was able to see what I captured, how I captured, I didn't have to wait a week, to shoot the roll of the film and then have it processed, coming back home and reviewing the images. Sometimes, when you're shooting film, it would be like a month or so from when I made the image
before you see it.
And I forgot, why I took it in the first place. So with the digital camera, it was like, wow, that instant opportunity for learning that got me hooked to review the image. So we would, I just basically hijacked his camera. It was mine at that point. Because he had better one. He was using the Nikon D200.
Sure.
Yeah, and then we would come home and we reviewed the images, and I did some I knew some Photoshop editing because I had a course with my work, how to edit photos and make them recover shadows, basic stuff in Photoshop, curves, levels, and that was it. And I got hooked, and then I got my own Nikon DSLR, and oh wow! And then I never stopped ever since. So this is how many years? Like 16, 17 years.
Wow. Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
Awesome. So where did it start to become art as opposed to just recording the scene that you saw before you?
It started then.
Okay.
That was the thing that changed my approach, how I photograph and why I photograph. Before that, I was just documenting, travel, okay, or subjects. This is Half Dome, this is El Capitan, and that was it,
Yeah.
Go any deeper into the subject.
Yeah.
And then in the beginning, I was focused more on small details and small scenes. Where I live, there is a small creek, seasonal creek, and that I was exploring rocks and running water. And I had a lot of things to learn at the time. At the time, I didn't really know that if I use a long focal length, that I will not have such good depth of field.
Yep.
So there was a lot of learning, but it was easy because, I would just go correct it, go back again and retake the same composition if something was wrong. And then I learned how to, do the combine the layers in Photoshop for maximum sharpness. And then I was photographing everything around the house. And I would go to Yosemite too, but I didn't really photograph grand landscapes.
Sure.
I don't know why. But then I did a first art show, which here in the foothills, it's an open studio tour.
Okay.
And usually there are hundreds of artists participating in different diverse media. And so you open your house, you have this place outside, and people come and chat with you. At the time, I thought I was a photographer. It was funny because I thought I was good at it.
Okay.
And people were mainly interested in images from Yosemite, but they wanted the like normal images, like postcard images.
Yeah. So the big grand landscape, half dome, as you said, El Capitan.
Yes, and of course you can make this, in like boring light, or you can make them in good light with interesting weather. And then I thought, okay, in order to be serious, I need to have my portfolio with Yosemite images, because this is what will make me a serious photographer.
Sure.
So I went, like, for next couple of years, I was going to Yosemite every time when it was interesting weather. I tried to make a portfolio of all the waterfalls and iconic rocks, and I did that. But in the end, I felt like I didn't show anything personal in that work, something that speaks of me and about me. It was just, I was lucky to be there to capture all these beautiful landscapes in beautiful light, just because I happened to live close and I was there often. And so I thought, okay, now I have this nice portfolio, but why that doesn't feel me like I express myself? Doesn't feel like I express myself through my images.
You're making images to please other people rather than yourself, yeah?
Yes, and then and it's not that this was the only thing I was doing at the time, but this was kind of thing that I had in mind that I had to do. And once I realized that having such impressive portfolio of iconic landscape is nice, but not particularly artistic, I started photographing more of intimate landscapes.
Yep.
And I remember the moment. I think it was 2015 or 14.
Yep.
And it was a beautiful winter day with atmospherics, a lot of clouds swirling around the iconic rocks, and everybody was photographing Yosemite Falls. And I looked, and I got my telephoto lens 80 to 400 millimeter, and I just turned my head around, and I looked up into the mountains, and I saw these beautiful atmospherics, clouds swirling around the peaks, and I started photograph that, and I was in the zone. I was totally absorbed, and from that moment, I think this is how and when it changed my approach to photography, and I started looking for more intimate scenes and something to photograph that shows piece of me.
Yep. Sure. You mentioned that it was originally photography to you was capturing a moment. Is it still capturing a moment, or is it something different now?
It is always a moment in time that we capture when we photograph. But when I said capturing the moment, what it meant to me before I was thinking about like street photography or documentary, and now I was thinking about landscapes. And I what I'm for many years now, I'm trying to I try to capture the mood of the landscape.
Right. Yep.
Instead of just like focusing on how I arrange the elements of the scene, I want to add a little bit extra. So of course you have to have good light, but I'm paying attention for how I feel, how am I expressing what I'm feeling, or it's different. At different times, I approach it different ways. For example, sometimes I can just pay attention how how the light interacts with the landscape, and sometimes I notice that how I feel influences the way how I capture things, and influences what I photograph, what I choose to photograph. But most important thing that I learned was just to try to not think but feel.
Right.
So when I'm in nature, I realize this is why I photograph. I like to be out in the nature. I like to experience the peacefulness, the calmness, the tempest, everything in nature.
Yeah.
And the way how can I do that is like I have to quickly purge my brain of all the thoughts that don't bring me into present moment.
Yeah, right.
So I kind of have to like force myself. It's not forcing, but I just try to like focus on the moment. I try to close my eyes. I try to feel the place. I try to hear the place. I try to smell the place, and all these senses bring me into present moment. And then I kind of the subjects just call me to photograph them.
Yeah.
I notice more things, so I'm not really. I'm not going to photograph with a preconceived idea in mind. I just open myself to be able to receive, kind of be receptive to the environment and notice things.
Yeah, right. So in terms of how you go about planning a shoot, from the sounds of it, you're not going in there with a preconceived notion of this is the shot that I'm looking for. You're more, I guess, as you said, feeling in the moment. When you're thinking about going on a photography trip somewhere, what is it that you're looking for, and what is it that you are planning for?
Oh, I will plan a little bit around weather.
Yep.
So if there is interesting weather, I will try to be there at the location, when it's not just like blue skies and sunny days. But I usually don't go for very long trips. I will go for like 2 to 4 days. And I work 4 days, so I always have 3-day weekends. And with one just extra day, with 4 days, I can cover long distance, which is not really long. I mean, that's relative. Long distance for me is Death Valley. Yosemite is my backyard. I go there like sometimes after work. So it's long distance for someone else might be going to Iceland. But I'm basically covering the places around California for several hours drive, like Yosemite, Sierra Nevada, Eastern Sierra, California coast. I go there a couple times a year. And sometimes I go to Northern California and Redwood Forest and Death Valley. And occasionally, I will make a longer trip, but this is a planned trip with friends. If I go to like, 10 days in Utah or something like that.
Yeah, got it. Do you look to challenge yourself and think outside of the box in terms of new ideas and approaches to your photography?
I I I don't like to force myself.
Okay.
Although I have to admit that I did challenge myself consciously, and I was very happy I did. I tried to make myself use more of a wide angle lens.
Mm-hmm.
I usually tend to shoot at with longer focal lengths,
Yeah.
and I did that a few times, but very seldom I can go. I usually stop at 24. If I have to go to 16 millimeter, I am zooming in. It's too much.
Fair enough. I guess one of the things that I'm interested in is how you've learnt that craft. Is it largely self-taught and experimentation on your own, or have you used mentorship with somebody else, or how have you actually learnt the craft of photography?
Okay, so there are two things: craft of using the camera, which I learned in school
Okay.
and use it at work, and then craft of art of photography.
Yeah.
And I learned that on my own. I well, my photography evolved obviously from when I started until now. I went through several phases, but I basically I was uh, experimenting until I realized and found out what I really like to do,
Yeah.
what I like to photograph, what landscapes attract me to photograph. And then when I realized that, everything was easy after that.
Yeah. Okay.
The other thing, so I realized that some people have natural eye for compositions, some can learn that, and I think I was a natural in composing. And but if, for example, from like 6 years ago, if someone asked me to explain my compositions, I wasn't sure I would do a good job.
Okay.
And then I was invited to several photography conferences as a speaker, and I had to prepare my presentation,
Mm-hmm.
and that actually taught me a lot. So all what I was doing intuitively before that, now I know exactly why I did it.
Yeah.
And
Right.
that was a huge leap in my photography education. It was
Mm.
basically understanding why I was doing something, why I was, and why do I arrange objects in a certain way? Why
Mm-hmm.
do I choose different shutter speeds? So now I do it more consciously than before.
Okay.
There's still that intuition,
Yep.
but
Yep.
I understand the why, and I think that's a good thing.
Yeah. In terms of the way that you look at the landscape, the environment is obviously, an essential part of that. How do you balance the desire to create a unique and, interesting image with the need to stay true to that natural environment and the reality of the scene? Are you trying to? I think your style is quite naturalistic, but it can also be quite dreamy and atmospheric. And I guess I'm interested in how you get that delicate balance between the two.
Well, first, I love to photograph in misty, dreamy conditions. So
Yep.
these are the scenes with subtle colors, subtle light, and then maybe in post processing you can do a lot. So
Mm.
I I tend to when I process my images, I tend to reduce contrast at first.
Okay.
And then I will increase the contrast where I want the viewer to focus, what's important to see. So it's basically maybe slight tweaking in saturation, in contrast, dodging and burning. But most of it is the result of that I do like to photograph in atmospheric conditions. This is what really I get super excited when I see fog. It's peaceful and exciting at the same time.
Cool.
I don't know do you have experience with fog, photographing in fog in Australia?
Yeah, a little bit. There are times when we do get it, and I mean, where I live, it's not frequent, but when I get the opportunity, I try and get out in it.
Yeah, but because it changes the landscape.
Yeah, it just develops the mystery around what's around you, and you can also isolate subjects and
exactly, yeah, and
change the perspective. Yeah.
This is what I like to do. It kind of the landscape looks new to me. It reveals the new compositions reveal themselves all the time, depending, if the fog moves and if it's thicker or not so thick. So I like photographing in foggy conditions. It's peaceful and exciting at the same time.
Yeah, cool. What does success look like for you in your photography?
Oh. I don't know how to answer that. I consider myself part-time professional.
Okay.
Because I do put up I put a lot of energy into it and a lot of thought and a lot of time in it.
Yeah.
I do it professionally. But so success is first I'm happy when I experience that moment in nature. And when I have peace, and sometimes when I come home and I don't even I'm thinking, oh, I didn't really make any award-winning image. I am happy and grateful for that time and couple hours I enjoyed making all these images.
Yeah.
So that's one. That's satisfaction and happiness while in nature, enjoying, experiencing the landscape, the weather, observing, feeling everything, and working. When you start, probably you do the same thing. When you reach that stage of creative flow, how nothing else matters.
Yeah.
And so that's a special mental state that I like. Then what else could be? Well, what is success? It's also when I make a really good image, I am proud of it.
Yeah.
And not every time that I go and photograph, I make really great image, but when I make one, I consider that a success.
Yeah, fantastic. How do you balance your work life as a scientist with your photography life and your home life? Obviously, those three elements are always a challenge.
Something's got to give.
You get pulled either way.
There is. I work 4 days, so I have 3 days for photography, and this is without taking any vacation days and considering that I don't travel too far, I can fit a lot in those 3 days.
Yeah.
But if I go, I usually take an extra day if I'm going on a longer trip or two, and so I do it in that way. Then when the weather is not conducive to the type of photography that I really enjoy doing, I will not force it. I will not, unless I know I'm just going for the hike.
Mm-hmm.
But then I'm just going for the hike. I will take my camera with me just in case, but I'm not going to with intention to make like great photographs.
Yeah.
So in those days, if I don't go, if I just stay at home, then I have time at home. Then I can, do stuff around the house and enjoy the family life. And usually I'm editing my photos at the time. So it's not really, but I'm present physically. I'm physically present in my house, but it still gives me time to do a little bit around in the garden and try some new recipes in cooking. I like cooking too.
Nice.
And the good thing for my work is usually, I don't carry my work to my home anymore.
Right.
Most of the time, when I'm done with working, I kind of I just move to photography, my second job.
Yeah. So, is photography an escape from that scientific method, or do you apply some scientific method to your photography?
Oh, people often ask me questions how the two relate, and I always say they're both creative. They're both creative in a way how you're approaching a scientific problem versus how you're approaching your subject you are going to photograph.
Yep.
You, as a scientist, you try to create some new solution for a problem. And for photographer would be, photograph it in a unique way. Like um, I try not to copy other people's work, but considering the way, how I'm mostly drawn to a smaller scene, it's hard to copy someone's work.
Yeah.
Because I don't really I like to do things intuitively. I don't like to be consciously influenced by anybody's work.
Yeah.
So I like to do my own thing, and I find pleasure in doing that.
Yeah, that's great.
But so both photography and science, to me, can express someone's creativity.
Mm.
And I have to adhere to scientific methods. How I do, when I'm doing experiment, it has to be done in certain ways. I have to use certain techniques, and the same is the thing in photography. I know how to operate the camera. I know if I change settings, what can I expect?
Yeah.
In my image, how my image will change. But I think the most important thing is basically both require critical and creative thinking.
That's great. Do you have a favourite spot that you like to repeatedly go back to, and what is it about that spot that draws you back all the time?
I do have several favorite spots, and it's, well, of course, Yosemite, because Yosemite Valley is about an hour drive from where I live.
Yep.
And really, and I used to commute to work for an hour, so to me that drive is nothing.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, Yosemite is my backyard and my inspiration. I think I know every tree there, but I still come back again and you know try to photograph something different.
Yeah.
And yeah, photographing smaller scenes. There are so many smaller scenes that you can find within a small area.
Yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't have to be large. I'll give you an example after I finish this thought. So I go to Yosemite because it's close. I go to Eastern Sierra. I go, which is just on the other side of the Sierra Nevada from where I live.
Sure.
I usually go there when Tioga Pass opens in the summer.
Yep.
So these are my favorite locations, like Sierra Backcountry, Tioga Pass, Eastern Sierra, and this is I went there. I'm going there so often that to me, I think I know them really well. And yeah, I like Death Valley too, which is a totally different landscape.
Yeah, yeah.
I've been going there since 2004, every year, usually 2 times. So I think I know the place, and I like about it. It's so large and desolate. Although you see people and cars, but you can always, move a little bit away from the road and you won't see anyone.
Sure, sure.
And yeah, I basically go to the same places over and over. That's the thing.
Nice.
Because of time constraint. I would like to expand and go further, but right now it is what it is.
Yeah, you've got some fantastic places almost on the doorstep. So why would you go?
Yeah, and then the coast is beautiful. California coast is beautiful. Yeah, I go there usually twice a year.
What's your most memorable experience?
Photography experience.
Yeah.
Oh, I think it was, well, probably because it was more recent experience. Last year, I went with a group of friends to High Sierra Lake, and we were there for a week. And it was a pack trip. That means that you have mules carry your stuff out there, and then you just go with the day pack, and then they drop off your stuff and leave and come and get you after a week.
Right.
And so there is something in being at certain location for a long time, and you're basically out of touch. It's just your group and the landscape around you, and it's amazing how the time passes by quickly.
Yeah.
One would think, what am I going to do up there in the mountains for a week? But it's amazing how the time goes by quickly, and everybody, is surprised. Oh, we need to leave. We need to pack. So last year, we just reached our destination. We had to cross the creek, so my boots were wet.
Yep.
My hiking sandals were in the pack. Creek crossing sandals were in the pack on the mules instead of with me. So I had to go into the creek knee deep. And just when we almost finished setting up our tents and our site, there was a torrential rain and storm with lightning. And the creek that we crossed maybe an hour earlier or two was a huge river. We were basically cut off in that little area. And just to experience that force of nature, it was, and you don't have a house to hide. Tent will not offer you too much protection, but
sure.
It was fantastic. I love that
Amazing
experience.
Thanks for sharing that. Do you have any horror stories?
Oh. Oh, I don't really have horror stories, but I do have a couple of bear encounters and
Okay.
a couple of it's not um, what is it, bobcat, large bobcat once in Yosemite.
Okay.
But I remember when pandemic happened
Mm.
in 2020, they closed Yosemite National Park, and then when they opened it, oh, I was so desperate to go there because I missed it so much. It was amazing how I felt when they opened the park and I could go back. So um, I decided one afternoon I just want to go for a hike, and my friends couldn't go. So I said, well, it's not a long hike, just 2 miles. I'll do it on my own, and maybe I'll stay for sunset. And I made sure that I had headlight in case I had to hike back in the dark.
Yep.
And then maybe 1 mile into the trail, I heard branches cracking.
Uh-huh.
Knew there was a bear.
Right.
Because it was pandemic and reservations were required, there was no one else on the trail. It was just me
Yep.
and the big bear. And luckily, I did have cell signal, and I kind of peeked around the corner, and I saw the biggest, largest black bear. I think I don't know how many pounds, but I've seen few bears, but this one was humongous.
Mm. Mm.
And I said, oh my gosh, what am I going to do? I said, shall I go back? What if he sees me? And I knew I had to make noise.
Yeah.
So he hears me. So, they're not aggressive like grizzlies.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if they hear you, they will kind of walk in an opposite direction from you. So I called my husband and I said, yeah, talk to me, talk to me. Just need talking. I need Bear to hear me, So we talked about 15 minutes. I said, well, I'll peek around the corner again and see if he left, and he was gone. And I
Nice.
said, okay, I guess I can hang up. And then I was thinking, what shall I do now? Shall I continue where I was going, or shall I go back? And I said, I'm going up. Bear probably left. And then I remember I had my iPhone with me with my playlist, music playlist,
Yep.
and I started to play loud my opera playlist on my iPhone. I said, and occasionally I would sing along, and I said, if this doesn't scare a bear, well, and everything went well.
Nice.
Although, one person was running the trail and he just stopped and gave me a strange look, and I said, "Oh, and it's not like it seems. I'm just singing for a bear." That was.
What's the practice of photography taught you about nature?
Toward what?
What has the practice of photography taught you about nature?
Oh my! We may need to delete this one because I don't. To my that nature, I didn't understand it.
So, what has photography taught you about nature? What have you learned about nature from photography?
Okay. Let's repeat this for the record. Because
sure. What has the practice of photography taught you about nature?
Oh, I think it taught me patience.
Mm.
It taught me that I need to take my time. It taught me to appreciate nature more. It taught me to learn about nature more.
Sure.
So I I think that I love nature more because of photography, because I'm constantly observing.
Yep.
Even if I don't carry my camera, I will watch the light across the landscape. I will look for some compositions, and every time I react like that, it connects me to the nature more than before.
Sure. Fantastic. In terms of your processing, are you the type to race home as soon as you've finished the shoot, load up the images on the computer and get into editing, or do you take a more measured approach and take your time around it?
The moment I come to my house, I download my images. I still have my hiking shoes on. And by the time I take my hiking shoes off, the images are being downloaded, and I have to review them right away. And I usually I will process a few, not that day, but the following day.
Sure.
And sometimes if I'm happy, then I'll continue. But sometimes if I'm not happy, I will just sit on them, or maybe start from scratch.
Yeah.
Whatever I did, because I knew to think in a different way. I don't want all layers to guide how to correct them. I want to think fresh. So if I'm not happy, if I'm happy, I just keep on.
Yeah, it's amazing the number of images I come back with and go, I should have stood about 2 feet to the left or 2 feet to the right.
Yeah, I mean,
or lifted the camera or dropped the camera,
So this is what I started doing more consciously now. When I mentioned that when I had to prepare talks for photography conferences, I started practicing that too. Yeah. And now, before I set up my tripod, and even if I do, I will always move a little bit to the left, right, zoom in, zoom out, camera low, and I'm more careful in watching if there is an intruding branch or if there is something, messing with my composition. Yeah. Than I did before, because most times, we're all excited when we see a beautiful scene in front of us, and sometimes I remember there were places that I ruined in my photographs. I mean, I photographed them and everything was perfect. The light was perfect. And there was a rock merging with the reflection of the peak in the water. Mm-hmm. And it was bugging me that I ruined the image just because my camera position was too high.
Yep. Yeah. I've done that many a time.
Yeah.
Do you prefer taking photos on your own or with other people?
I prefer photographing alone. I kind of I like the feeling that it's just me and the nature, and we are conversing, communicating. There is no distractions. I mean, when I go on longer trips, I will go with a friend, and then I may think, oh, am I working too long here? This scene,
are they getting impatient?
Yeah. and vice versa. I want to move on, and my friend is still taking photos, and then we talk and chat. So it's like a social time. Yeah. And while we talk and chat, then I'm not noticing the nature and landscape and compositions. So I'm distracted, basically.
It can break you out of the zone very quickly.
It does, yeah. It's nice to have company, but I like to photograph alone. I know when I'm alone that I always come back home with more meaningful images than if I'm with.
Sure. You obviously print a lot of your work. You've got a few displayed behind you. Yeah. Do you print yourself or do you use a service? And I guess just some ideas around how you prep for printing.
It's all in house.
Okay.
I I've been printing my work almost since the beginning. I think I bought my printer in 2007. And I think this is the third printer. It's 17 inches wide, so most images I don't print larger. But if someone wants larger, then I will outsource it and send it to a printer.
Sure. Nice.
But I like to see if I need to adjust something right away. If something didn't print the way I wanted it. But I basically I use ICC profiles for paper printer combinations, and I usually get the result that I kind of anticipated.
Yeah, nice. What sort of paper are you using?
Oh, several ones. I use matte paper and like a satin finish, like a slightly luster finish, like Epson exhibition fiber or Ilford Gold Gallery fiber silk. I like those two. For that luster satin finish. Depending, each image, I think some work better on matte paper, some will work better on luster paper, and so that's how that's why I like to see them both results at the same time. Once on matte, once on luster, but most of the time I can tell which ones require that deeper contrast, which you can achieve with the coated papers, luster papers, than
How do you push past creative blocks and overcome challenges? And what sort of things are you doing to stay inspired and engaged?
I experienced a block when the pandemic started in 2020 and closed. I don't know how it was in Australia, but here all the national parks were closed, state parks were closed. Basically, we were under lockdown and couldn't go anywhere.
Yep.
And since I live in the rural area, lockdown I'm outside all the time anyway.
Yeah.
And but I couldn't. I wasn't inspired to do my usual landscape photography. It was springtime and everything was blooming, wildflowers and oaks were leafing and blooming. And I wasn't inspired at all. I remember a few times I went for a drive in my car and took my camera and tripod and I didn't take them out. I just wasn't inspired, and I thought for the moment I panicked. I had to be frank. I thought, oh my gosh, did I lose my my drive to create? Like, what's happening? And then one day of course I was in the house. Everybody was working from home, and I had an orchid that I sacrificed its stem. I froze it in a pool of water in my freezer, and I wanted to see how what will I get and how it will turn out. And I went online and looked for techniques and I figured out what I had to do. And oh my gosh, it turned out wonderful. And so I went on. I got inspiration. So it was like a new project for me. New project, different type of photography, but it was so creative because I could arrange my stuff in the tray, when you're pouring water. I don't know. This series is on my website.
Okay.
This is called Ice Elation. And it's basically frozen flowers encased in ice.
Nice.
And then I started sharing this on social media and everybody got super excited. They started inviting me to come and visit their gardens, pick their flowers, and try this, try that, and that brought my creativity back.
Fantastic. That's
yeah,
awesome.
I was surprised, but the power of the project, it worked.
Yeah. No, it's amazing how projects can do that. I mean, this podcast itself is a product of the pandemic and our lockdown. We were locked down 165 days, where we weren't allowed more than 5 kilometres away from our front door. And around me, it's suburban sort of nothingness as far as I'm concerned photographically. I mean, there are people that do amazing stuff with suburban photography, but it's just not, it just doesn't make me go. And so, yeah, I was trying to work out, okay, so what do I do? And I kicked off a podcast. So.
Wow, that's fantastic. Yeah, it's a successful project. For sure.
Yeah, well, so far I'm certainly not tired of it, but and I don't think I'll run out of people to talk to either. It's been good and been really good, I think, for my creativity. I've learnt a lot through talking to people like yourself and others, and trying to I guess extend and learn as much as I can out of these conversations. It's a big part of I guess what makes me, or what I think makes me a better photographer is I can certainly see improvement since I started this.
Yeah, I can see that how that can spark different thinking and try different, make you try different things and new techniques. Yeah,
definitely. Where do you see photography going in the future, and what sort of challenges do you see for photography on the horizon?
Are you alluding to AI?
Well, that's one of them. I mean, climate change is another big challenge. I think there's a lot of them. Yeah.
I think there will always, well, it depends on what you mean by photography. To me, it's always part of the experience.
Yeah.
I don't think it will affect me. I will still go out and,
Yeah, I'm the same.
I'm not going to type keywords and try to, see what the computer and AI will create for me, because I enjoy the time when I'm making the image at a location. I enjoy, observing, creating, composing, adjusting camera settings, everything. But I don't think there'll be change for landscape photographs. Maybe photography contests will have to definitely require, to examine raw files.
Yeah, definitely. I think for people that are, getting into that sort of thing, it's definitely going to be a bit of a challenge. I think, and I've said this on the podcast to a couple of people before, I think commercial photography, there's definitely some threats there. But I think you're right, for landscape photographers, the experience is, for me, 95% of the reason I do it. Actually going and seeing amazing places and getting out into nature and experiencing it, as you said earlier, seeing it, feeling it, smelling it, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, but then in terms what people will buy, that's hard to tell.
Well, that's it. Yeah.
But I can see that if you're selling images and prints, that someone can come with a fantastic AI generated print with beautiful light and majestic mountains and reflections and everything without even going outside the door.
Yeah. I mean, if all you want is a pretty picture, that's great. But if you want the experience, and to me, I think the stories that, and you don't need to accompany an image with words necessarily, but the stories that the images themselves tell about the atmosphere and what you experienced when you were there, to me, that's a big part of what I do anyway. Is I'm trying to share the feeling of what it was like to be
exactly
there at that moment. Yeah.
And even now, without this all new AI thing, people were already using it, like sky replacements.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Light adjustments and all that. It's like,
adding colour where you dull grey day. All right, well, I'll add some pink into the clouds, and it looks like a nice sunrise or sunset.
Oh yeah, totally. Like faking the time of the day and
putting the aurora over at the Sydney Opera House, for example.
Oh wow. Yeah. So I don't know. Time will tell.
Yeah. What's your favourite thing about being a photographer?
Everything.
Okay. Well, I'll ask the question a different way. What's your least favourite thing about being a photographer?
Carrying stuff on my back and tripod. Well, I don't mind it, but I actually enjoy every aspect of it. I people say you shouldn't have expectations when you go, but I always anticipate something. I say, I'm kind of, when I'm driving, I'm hoping to see this and that and this light. Sometimes it materializes, sometimes it doesn't, but if it doesn't, it's okay. I'll photograph something else. But I enjoy that anticipation too.
Yeah.
Driving to the location, it's like where everything is possible. Then you come to the location and you see that your possibilities are limited somewhat. But I always find something to photograph, especially when you photograph small scenes. I don't need clouds in the sky, and most of the time I don't include sky in my compositions. Yeah. Unless it's like, I photograph ground landscapes too.
Yep.
When the timing is right, when the weather is right, but most of the time I will try to explore. So what I enjoy is exploring and experimenting, and maybe, I recently, a couple of months ago, I tried a new technique and I loved it. I was using flash to photograph snowflakes and snow falling. And I created the entire body of work with gigantic snowflakes. And I never thought I will use flash for my landscape photography.
Yeah, I don't even put a flash on my camera. It doesn't have built-in one, and
It doesn't have built-in. I actually had to carry that Nikon Speedlight on mine.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, people looked at me in a weird way.
I've used my phone torch to light paint in a night scene or something, but I've never used a flash.
Yeah, that was just to illuminate the flakes close to the camera lens, so they are out of focus, big, gigantic, round, like bouquet, as bouquet, and makes image look dreamy. Nice. And so that's experimenting part of photography, and I tried that and I liked it.
Fantastic. What tips do you have for somebody that's just starting out in landscape photography? What would you tell a young person that's only just picked up a camera for the first time and wants to get into it?
Oh, I would advise that person to carefully choose the photographer whose work they admire and that inspire them. Because because obviously someone's work will influence the way how you photograph. For example, some people like saturated images or like very contrast images. Some like more subtle work.
Yep.
So it's okay to try everything and see what your vision is, what you like to do.
Yeah.
And obviously, important thing is to learn what makes a good image. Is the important thing. Once you know what makes a good image, which is subjective, but then then your photography will improve.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you for that. Are there any photographers that you think I should be talking to on the podcast?
Many. David Thompson.
Yep.
Of course, Michael Fry and Bill Neal and Charlie Kramer.
Okay. Yep.
Dan Mitchell. I think you probably like to talk.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I've got one more question for you. Sorry, go on.
I just said Charlotte Gibb.
Oh, okay. Yes, definitely. Yeah. I've got one more question for you, and for many of my listeners, it's the most important one that we're trying to get to the bottom of for landscape photographers. Do you like pineapple on pizza?
Oh, no. No. I know actually what original pizza is supposed to taste like.
Yep.
Just tomato sauce and maybe cheese, and that's it.
Yeah.
Everything else is extra, but pineapple, no.
Well, thank you very much for taking the time out, Franka. It's been wonderful getting to know you a little bit better and understanding more about how and why you do what you do. Where can people find your work?
They can go to my website, frankagabler.com, or find me on Facebook and Instagram and Vero. It's Franka Gabler. So if they type my name, they will find me.
No worries. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Fantastic. Thanks again for listening to Landscape Photography World. I hope you enjoyed the show, and keep listening because I'll be joined by some great guests in upcoming episodes. You can find my work in this podcast at grantswinburnphotography.com. I'm also on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Vero, and Facebook. I'm Grant Swinburne. Hope to see you out shooting soon.